Thank goodness A Walk in the Woods came to our theaters last week, and I got to see it on Saturday. Because if it didn't come out, then we would have been seeing Sinister 2 and Transporter Refueled. That probably would not have been a good Saturday at all. And if The Visit is the only movie that comes out this week, well, I might have to bite the bullet and finally see Transporter Refueled in theaters with The Visit. Hopefully something else comes out. A Walk in the Woods is a low-budget film that most people probably never even heard of. I didn't hear about it until it came out in theaters, but I was willing to see an indie film that I didn't know anything about than go to Transporter Refueled without Jason Statham in it. The plot is really simple. It stars Robert Redford and Nick Nolte, and Robert Redford, he wants to go on a walk. He's a little washed up. He's this author that traveled a lot, and he made travel journals that he published, and he wants to go on this really long hike. Was it the Appalachian Trails? Was that what it was called? I think it is. It was it was thousands of miles long. Well, Robert Redford is older, and his wife is like, no, you can't do this alone. You gotta go because she's with someone else if you're gonna do this, because she's read all these reports of people dying on it. It's a dangerous trail. None of his friends want to go with him, but finally he got into contact with a friend that wants to go, and he's played by Nick Nolte. And so now you have Robert Redford and Nick Nolte traveling on a trail that is similar, if not the same trail that Reese Witherspoon was on in Wild, except it's the later half of it, so it's all the woods area. And instead of being a full-on drama, it is more a comedy about these older gentlemen that are trying to do some dangerous trail and trying to prove to themselves that they're not as old as everyone thinks they are, which is what most of the comedy is built off of, and you get a fun time in the movie theaters. Now, A Walk in the Woods isn't a bad film. It's not a great film either. It's easily something in between. It's something that you could like, but it's not grand, it's not amazing, but it's not bad, it's not terrible, it's not boring. It is a funny and entertaining film. Most of the comedy, like I said, draws on them being older and them being on this trail and being too old to do this trail and all that sort of thing. That is where most of the comedy lies, as well as old people doing young people stuff. That's not to say that all the comedy dwells on that, but for the most part, that's what most of the comedy is for A Walk in the Woods. Just look at the trailer and you'll get a sense of what this movie's about. Some of the things that work extremely well in A Walk in the Woods is the chemistry between Robert Redford and Nick Nolte. They play as opposites. Robert Redford's the more straight and narrow path sort of guy, while Nick Nolte is mainly more of the comic relief. He's a little bit of the mess up. He was a drunk and a party guy in his younger days, and so he's still a bit of a washed out sort of character in this movie. And I think the chemistry between them, the acting, is all done really well in A Walk in the Woods. And if I were to choose between these two main characters, I would choose that I was more interested in Nick Nolte's character. Like I said, he's more of the washout, the has-been, the funny guy at the same time. He was the more interesting character, and he had the best backstory of the two characters, because Robert Redford is just a guy that's got a family life, and he's almost just going through a midlife crisis sort of thing. While Nick Nolte is giving up alcohol, he's dealing with some issues. This is pretty much like a road trip sort of movie, except they're just hiking in the woods. There's no car, there's no road involved. It's a road trip movie, though. It's also pretty much almost a comedic version of Wild. So if you've enjoyed Wild, you might enjoy A Walk in the Woods, except, like I said, it's more comedic, so it's not as dramatic or as intense as Wild is. Another thing that A Walk in the Woods has similar to Wild, other than the same sort of trail, at least towards the end of Wild, is the beautiful visuals of nature. There's just so many moments where I'm looking at the screen and I'm just looking at the surroundings of the characters and just imagining myself in that place and how beautiful and amazing it would look like. Ultimately, I had a really fun time in A Walk in the Woods. I was laughing a lot. I was having fun with the characters, but ultimately, when it finally gets dramatic, it didn't really hit for me. I just wish there was a lot more dramatically going for the film, because that's what I look for indie films. I look for a good mixture of drama and comedy, but this was definitely more comedy than it was dramatic. After getting out of the theater, I felt A Walk in the Woods was somewhere around a 3.5 or 4-star film for me. That's how much I liked it. But as the days go by and as I get closer to the end of the year and I start thinking back to it, it's probably not going to be as memorable. So I'm going to give A Walk in the Woods 3 stars. So, have you seen A Walk in the Woods? What did you think about it? Go ahead and comment. And as always, this is Bruce Gifford, and this was Just My Opinion.